So for everybody watching on Facebook, welcome to the replay, probably. Thank you for joining us here today as well. All right. Beautiful. Okay, so we'll kick things off here. People will continue to stream in over the course of the day, over the course of our session here today. Once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the community table today, where we will be discussing 2021 marketing trends that you don't know about, but you should know about. These are some of the things that are kind of hot and going on these days in the world of marketing. And we have some we're going to have a great conversation today. My name is Ian Campbell. I am the CEO of Mission Suite, and of course, joining us today again is Dean Isaacs, the founder and CEO of Vantage Group, and Katrina Padron as well, who is the CEO and founder of North Star HQ. So before we dive into bios here, just a couple housekeeping things. We're going to be taking questions throughout the session today. Of course, we'll be opening up Q&A at the end of this as well. But if you have questions along the way, definitely let us know. Just go ahead and you can drop Q&A into the Q&A section of the Q&A button on the Zoom screen there, so that we can kind of keep everything in line. It tends to be a little bit easier in the chat. And so if you have specific questions, go ahead and add them there, and we'll make sure that we get to them. Now this, just real quick, again, Dean here is a serial entrepreneur. He's got over 20 years of hands-on business growth, sales and marketing experience. He works with B2B companies across the US that range from startups to the Fortune 500. His passion is helping small and mid-sized businesses achieve their growth goals by developing and implementing high-impact sales, marketing, and growth strategies. Katrina envisioned a different kind of agency that sits at the intersection of marketing and technology. Holding a master's degree in sociology from DePaul University, Katrina is an award-winning marketer with more than 13 years of experience. She has passionately served as a voice for technological advancement and medical support for underrepresented and underserved populations. In just a few quick years, Katrina bootstrapped a digital marketing agency to a top choice firm, landed herself on national stages, shared thought leadership concepts on Social Media Today and Social Media Examiner. And I have been fortunate to know both of them professionally as well. So Katrina and I have worked together directly and with clients and shared clients, and Dean and I of course have as well too. So we're excited for this. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks again.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. So Katrina, I'm curious just to hear from your perspective, just kind of a quick, obviously I got your LinkedIn bio, but beyond the bio, kind of give us a quick minute or two on who you are, where you came from, and you can go ahead and start wherever you want to start.
Well, thanks for that, because the LinkedIn bio needs updated. You said 13 years. I'm like, oh, I got older. Note to self, I'm going to go update that. Yeah, I mean, a lot of what we're doing right now in marketing really is associated with lead gen for clients. I think, this last year has been bumpy for a lot of businesses. We happen to play pretty heavily in the tech space and the business services space as far as our clients go. Those industries and those verticals have been growing, but one of the challenges that they have is everything was canceled. So every event, whether it's like a conference or just like a local networking event, all of those aren't happening anymore. And so we're trying to build out plans that supplement their marketing strategy and, start building some relationships that would be forged in other ways in previous years.
Excellent. Beautiful. Well, thank you. And so that goes really well into what we're going to be talking about today. So, and Dean, just give us a couple of minutes here quick. And since we're going to be starting with kind of a conversation about micro trends, and we're going to be talking to you a little bit about that to open up, why don't you kind of give us a rundown of your experience in this and, kind of what we can be talking about.
Yeah, so mostly working with B2B businesses, tech, and across every industry, but a lot of tech and professional services, construction, that kind of stuff. And just like was already said, the world changed, right? When we have business developers out there knocking on doors virtually or otherwise, networking, meeting people, and that stopped. Lead generation stopped for a lot of businesses. So they're trying to figure out how to do that. And so we're helping clients with that too. But the next piece is you generate leads. What do you do with them? How do you convert those leads into revenue? So that's the part that we also support our clients with, is on the sales approach, leveraging technology, leveraging relationships, leveraging whatever you can to generate profitable revenue. But thinking about the whole cycle, right? Lead gen all the way through to new clients and then long-term revenue from those existing clients as well. So that's where we play and where we have fun.
Very nice. Very nice. So our key question here today really goes to what's coming this year, right? And so if we look into the crystal ball, what's this year going to look like as far as marketing is concerned? And as we look to find new revenue opportunities, new markets, new opportunities to expand our presence, what are we looking to? And Dean, I'd like to start kind of with you specifically, because we talked a little bit about this concept of the micro trend, right? And whether it's micro content, micro marketing, micro membership, I mean, there's a lot of it, right? So starting with there, can you kind of first and foremost explain what this micro trend is?
Yeah, so there's probably a number of different descriptions, but when I think of the micro trends, it's taking really nitty small activities, right? So micro content could be a daily text with a motivational, quote, for example. It's a really small thing. It's easy to execute. It's easy to build a large audience on. So that's the kind of thing when I think micro memberships can be typically memberships where somebody's paying on a regular basis for your stuff, whatever that may be, but it's usually less than $10 a month. So small. So, and you may think, well, that doesn't make sense from a business model. Well, yeah, 5,000 people paying you $10 a month. It adds up really quick. And you can execute that really, really easily with technology too. So when I think micro trends, I think those kinds of things. We can get into some other specifics, but that's tends to be where I think.
Yeah. And so, and Katrina, this leads me to a question for you, because one of the key questions when it comes, to Dean's point, if you get 5,000 people paying you $10 a month, that turns into real money, right? I mean, 100,000 here, 100,000 there, all of a sudden you can spend some stuff. So, but the key to that is scalability, right? And that really kind of dives into your expertise on the paid social side, because at least this is what I've kind of really looked at paid social, at paid social ads rather, is where I go to scale, right? And would you say that that's kind of that we're looking at the same that's a good predictor for how paid social is going to work moving forward this year too?
Yeah. So paid social in particular has come a long way. So I just joke that, I have more than 13 years experience now. So I've been at this a long time. And when we started in the social media space, I mean, like, this was a time where people were using personal accounts to promote their business, and they would name it, North Star Katrina. It's like Katrina at North Star. And so there wasn't this advertising structure. And as the advertising structure started, it was really focused on what most of us would call vanity metrics. In the marketing space, hey, I look at vanity metrics. I want to know how many people clicked, how many people engaged, which is like, comment, shared. I even want to know how many impressions we have. Impressions, the best way to understand that is it's kind of like you're driving on an interstate and you see a billboard. Do your eyeballs see that billboard? And if they do, that is one impression. But you translate that physical billboard to the online space. Are you scrolling past and your eyes see it? So those vanity metrics, we want to know, because those are indicators that people are seeing the content, they're engaging with the content. Now, the drum I've been beating in the last couple of years is MQLs are dead. All those vanity metrics are MQLs. And what people care about now is the SQL. And for a long time in the advertising space, there was no real way to measure that. So the difference is did someone engage with the content? Did someone see the content? That's an MQL. But what marketers and business owners want to know is, did they buy my thing, whatever my thing is? And so now in all of the platforms, whether it's Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, there's now pixels and insight tags, but there's that attribution model so that you can run a piece of content. You can see see how many people are liking, commenting, sharing, clicking, but then you can see how many people are completing that sales process, and you can contribute that action back to that ad or that piece of content. So you know like exactly what's working to grow your business, not just kind of like get your brand and name out there sort of thing.
Yeah. So Dean, how does that apply directly to this micro content, right? Because I mean, if we're, and the micro stuff, if you will, because if we're looking at, if to Katrina's point, I mean, I like to know how many people like me, right? I mean, I want to know how many people give me a thumbs up on the picture that I posted that shows my smiling face, right? Absolutely.
We want to feel good, but we want to make money.
That's it, exactly, right? But the fact that you like my teeth doesn't mean that you're going to actually buy anything from me, right? Yeah. So when we think about that, and we look at like kind of the micro content memberships and whatnot, how are we? I mean, is there a specific way that we should be gearing up this micro stuff to play into that and to grow that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point, because we sometimes just do stuff because we think we should be doing it, right? I need to post more stuff on LinkedIn because the world tells me so. So I think just being really clear on what your goal is. And so an easy example is, we've all seen this sort of freemium model, right? Where you subscribe to content, it's free. And then you decide, I really love this stuff. I want to get the next level of, in-depth content. So that's paid, that's premium content. So if you're in the business services world and your goal is to sell some kind of consulting, you could create a really coherent sales model where you're building awareness, let's say through social media, right? You're getting engagement. That engagement turns into people subscribing to your free content. Then you have a plan to upsell them with the premium stuff on, let's say, a micro membership. And then after X period of time, they continue to pay that $10 a month. Then you have a really engaged audience. They know, like, and trust you. They see your stuff is of quality because they're paying for it. Then you're in position to sell them perhaps a more substantial consulting agreement, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a really coherent process there, all the way from identifying your ideal target, right, your ICP, all the way through to closing a deal, generating revenue. But if you have that plan, then you can build in sequences and events along the way to move them to the next level, versus just trying stuff, because people just tend to just try stuff without a goal in mind. So they don't know how to measure the success, and they say, 5 likes on that post isn't enough. I'm done with LinkedIn. I'm moving on to the next thing. So having that plan is really important.
Sure.
Along the way, yeah.
So I'm curious, because we, in talking about micro content, and I want to come back to kind of the structure and listen and hear the both of you, because we're talking about content, learning, memberships, and it seems like the ads that the advertising piece can come into all those different parts of it, right? So I want to come back to that, but before I do, I want to ask Dean, I want to ask you a question about because I mean, for so long the focus of all content, right, has really been on Google and other search engines, right? Yep. Is this a departure from that? Is that it seems like it? Would that be accurate?
I would say it's in addition to that, right? So at the end of the day, if one of your marketing goals is to drive traffic to your website, a landing page, some place on the web that you own, then you have to remember Google. You have to think in terms of SEO. If you're not talking about paid ads, you're just talking about organic traffic, you have to think about that. And so what we would think about in terms of native content on a website with keywords and then links, and all the traditional SEO stuff drives SEO traffic. But I was on a call with a prospect last week, and I'm not an SEO guy, right? I kind of think strategy, but nonetheless, I just Googled the most important key phrase that they want to drive traffic for. And the 2 sponsored out at the top, one of them was HP. And I said, guys, you don't have a budget to compete with HP. So right. Forget that. And then HP was in the top 3 organic results. You probably don't have the budget to compete with the organic either. But right below that were two other sections. One was news articles, and the other section was YouTube videos. Both of those are free. If you generate the right kind of content on the right kind of platform, you can drive a ton of SEO driven traffic to your online place or whatever it is. And so a YouTube video strategy that's optimized for search and it's distributed in the right way can drive free traffic to the first page of Google search results, and you're not competing with HP's budget. So if you think about video, it's its own thing. You can certainly build your YouTube channel. You can share video in smaller snippets across all the social platforms. But if you think in terms of SEO, it can drive really amazing traffic too. So it's in addition to, is the way I think of it.
Gotcha. So
Can I piggyback on that, just
yeah.
for any of the listeners that, because I know SEO is kind of, especially if marketing is not your background, I feel like SEO is this mystery to a lot of business owners, and for good reason. Like, it can get really complicated,
And to some marketers, by the way,
you know
too,
what I
right?
mean? So, but what I wanted to say is kind of draw the distinction between SEO and search versus social and paid. And that is, so SEO is search engine optimization. And what that means is when people are typing in Google, like, I don't know, how to hang a picture frame, or how to get more Facebook fans. If you solve that problem, if you are a person who hangs picture frames, or if you are a marketing agency that gets Facebook fans for businesses, then you want to show up in those results, because those people are essentially raising their hand by typing those keywords in. They're saying, I have a problem. Can anyone solve it? And if you can, it's likely that you'll gain them as, you know, a reader of your content or potentially a client. But that's the important piece of search. And then on the flip side, social is a little bit differently. So the way we target social is based on interest and behavior. So if let's use my own example of, I'm a marketing agency and I work with tech companies. So I'm often targeting people who follow other big marketing influencers like a Gary Vaynerchuk or a Marie Forleo, who read articles like Ad Age magazine, you know, something like that. Those are the types of people that I'm trying to be in front of, because they are indicating to me that they're interested in more content that would help them with marketing. But at the same time, they're not actively searching. When they're seeing my content on social, they're just scrolling through, looking at family photos, seeing what their friends were up to for the weekend, and then my content pops up. And the reason I think this is valuable to note is, even if they're looking at friends' photos from the weekend and my marketing content pops up, they're still one person, and they still know, like, hey, I have a marketing problem and this looks like it will solve that. And so they're rarely like separating, well, I was on Facebook for personal reasons, so I'm not going to click on that right now. But I just wanted to put that out there as the distinction. So it's someone raising their hand saying, solve my problem, here are my keywords, and then someone else kind of scrolling through, but they have like some interest and behavior associated with that phrase.
Yeah. So, and that's an interesting distinction, because, and two questions kind of popped out from that. So first of all, are we, and we're not, I know that we're not talking search today, right? But, and, you know, none of us have a crystal ball, but, you know, this is a prediction webinar, so why not? But do you think that we're going to end up going toward a marketing scenario where people are probably going to be focusing more on creating content that's just for users in the situation that Katrina, that you just described on social, and not for search? Or do you think, and kind of just let Google and YouTube and whatnot do its thing? Because I mean, Dean, you talked about the YouTube videos showing up, the news articles showing up. Katrina, you talked about your marketing content. So I'm interested in hearing from both of you as to, you know, if you think that maybe we're starting to move away from the trend of creating content for Google, or with the intention of Google, and really just with the intention of engaging, be it on video, news, social, what have you.
My thoughts are you need both, but you need both for different reasons. So in the marketing space and sometimes in the sales space, we often talk about a marketing funnel or a sales funnel. So if you think of the funnel shape, right, like it's big at the top and gets narrow at the bottom. At the top is awareness. So these are people who uh, they know, maybe they know your brand exists or your company exists. Maybe they know that vaguely what you do. But they're not buying, they just kind of know about it. Middle section is consideration. They're like, you know what, I do have a problem, leads have been really low, maybe I do need to talk to a marketing agency about it, but they also haven't really gone through all the steps of what that might look like. Then the bottom section, which is what we all want, is conversion. This is where they're like, yep, I need to buy this product or this service, this is going to solve my problem. So when we look at Google, the people who are raising their hand, AKA typing in, I have a problem, can you solve it? Those are the people that are most likely to get to that conversion phase the quickest because they have the problem, they know it, and they need a solution to it. Now, when we're advertising and putting content out on social, those people might not know they have a problem, and they might not even have the problem today. Like, for example, I'm not looking for a plumber today, but if my sink clogs tomorrow, suddenly, I'm like, who are the plumbers in my neighbor or in my area? And that's how you can get them to that conversion, is when they have a problem. But essentially on social, you're first starting with awareness and consideration, and over time you're working them into the conversion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Gartner did a study recently, right? And they say that their study showed that 50% buyers spend 50% of their time online researching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and they're anywhere between 60 and 80% of the way through their decision-making process before they actually want to talk to a salesperson. So the key is knowing that 50% of the time online researching, where are they researching? Where are they spending their time, right? It could be anything from, if they're sort of vaguely just sort of poking around, it's probably social. If they're actively pursuing solutions, it's probably Googling stuff. So what are they looking for? Where are they going? Associations, analyst organizations, they're all really good third-party referrers as well in terms of putting your brand out there. So there's lots of options. So I think it's both. I don't think we're going away from search, because at the end of the day, somebody has to go find a solution. Now, I think it actually, the paid ads, and we'll get into this on social, Katrina, I know this is part of your area of expertise. You can drive top of funnel with ads really quickly, right? Yeah. It's qualified top of funnel. And if then you understand the buyer's journey, you can engage and move them through into consideration, then you can drive traffic, you can drive deals. But of course, as soon as you start putting money in that slot machine on paid, that particular traffic source goes away. So you're going to have balance there as well.
Okay, excellent. So where does this micro content that we're talking about, where does this live? And what's its goal? I guess it's a two-part question there. Like, is this stuff that should go on our website or just live on Facebook and YouTube and whatnot? And, if that's the case, what are we trying to do with it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the key, right? It's, again, like we sort of mentioned earlier, begin with the end in mind. If your micro content is about building your list, whether it's a social list, engagement on one of the platforms, or your email list, whatever it is, then, that's going to drive what kind of content and where it lives. So I'll give you an example. Spotify at the beginning of January had a new sort of podcast that they put out. It's a 3 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night. Let's see, it's called Wake Up, Wind Down. 30-day thing. So you wake up to a 3-minute like motivational thing, and at the end of the day, you have a 10-minute wind down meditation. It's 30 days. It's free, right? So that's podcast content. So you would host that there. I actually think that's a great model as a freemium option, right? So people love that for 30 days. Then they want to buy into your micro membership and they get more robust content, and you can build your revenue stream through that. So that's something that you own the content, but it sits on a podcast platform. Mm-hmm. And how do you get that out? We mentioned I mentioned text earlier. I think text is going to be a huge trend this year and moving forward, a way to get into people's pockets really quickly. Email open rates, right? Depends on who you ask. It's anywhere between 5 and 25%, right? Depends on how friendly the list is. But those emails can end up in spam. They could end up being unopened for hours, days, or even weeks. Texts get open in the first hours, so usually first minutes, and there's a 90% open rate on texts. Even ones we don't know who it's from, what do? We open it. We see what the message is. We're not as worried about getting spammed or viruses and all that kind of stuff. So how do you build a text list, an opted-in text list, and use your micro content to stay in front of them consistently? So I don't know if I answered your question. I probably went off this huge rabbit trail.
Well, I want to know. So you left me at a cliffhanger. I want to know, how do you build a text list? That's not my specialty. So carry on.
So it's much like you would build an email list.
Okay.
Right? So you have a gated piece of content. So maybe it's through a social ad or your Facebook page or your LinkedIn page or your email newsletter, however you're getting the word out into the world, you offer something of value. And what do? They have to give you their email address to get that stuff. Well, you simply add their phone number, a box for their phone number. You can put a little blurb in there about how you protect privacy, just like you do with emails, but people will give you their cell number, believe it or not. It used to be, nope, you're not even getting my 1-800 number to my office. Right. They give it up now because it's convenient. And then you tell them this content's delivered in a quick, easy text message every morning. It's convenience for them. They will give you their phone number.
Yeah.
So the mechanism is much the same as gathering email addresses.
Yeah, that's super smart. And you're right about those open rates. I think the last number I saw in text open rates was that most of them are opened within 2 minutes of sending. But even beyond that, I think it was like the first 30 seconds was the number that they were targeting.
Incredible. When we think about successful email campaigns, it's not even close.
Right.
I still think, we use email a ton. Email tends to just be a workhorse, but it really goes back to how was that list built? Like what sort of quality got in there in the first place? Because if it was built with integrity over time, those lists still add so much value. But there was this weird time for a little while where list quality just was not great. And so I feel like a lot of businesses kind of still feel that and still see that sometimes, just, from some earlier decisions.
I couldn't agree more. I think that a quality email list with an engaged audience is one of your most important business assets. I think text is great and it's not going away, but it's not going to be as robust as a good email list. It's just one more little micro trend.
Yeah.
I remember back like maybe 5 years ago, there was a woman who built a business that basically just an email list, right? That had like 500,000 people on it. And she sold it for something like $3.5 million.
Wow.
Right. Or probably more than that. Right. It was insane. And the amount of money that she was able to pull from that, just because she built this huge asset, and she had, she sold stuff around and whatnot, but really the crux of her business was that email list. Right. So
the other thing to know about email lists or text lists for that matter is that's property that you own as the business owner. And so a lot of times when we're looking at social, right, like everyone wants more fans or more followers, whatever it is. But the problem is if these platforms go away or they change their terms, you don't have access to all of those people. And so it's kind of that balancing act, as these social platforms are a great vehicle to get you in front of those people. But you also have to know that things change. And so that might not always be accessible to you.
That's a great point. And I know you do a lot of work with LinkedIn. And we advise clients around that too. And one of the challenges is, the typical process, right? You do a connection request. We know lots of the same people, generic thing, right? You try not to scare them off on that first outreach, right? And
like, I'm nice, talk to me.
Don't tell you anything, hopefully. And then you have this sort of sequence of messages, and maybe you actually don't scare them away, and you actually do create a dialogue, and that's all well and good. But the relationship then lives on LinkedIn. And so part of the strategy has to be, how do you move them off of LinkedIn and get them to email, get them to an asset that you own and control. And I think that's the piece that's often missing, is that people try and build a business around just a single platform they have no control over at all. So if you're using LinkedIn or any of the social platforms as a channel, you've got to find a way to convert them to your list, to your community, to another place where you have some control and ownership.
Not that we've seen big changes in the way that LinkedIn or Facebook show our content to our audience in the past few years, right?
That's what it like, and when I tell people that, that's what it feels like. Oh, Facebook's never going away, and it's not to say, or whatever platform, but it's not to say that that platform is going away. But they control it. They make their own business decisions, and what features and tools are on those platforms, or how conversations get facilitated through those platforms. It has changed, and it has changed in recent times too, and then also over the lifetime since these platforms came up, maybe in 2005, 6, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So, so we've kind of covered the migration from kind of micro content into, text messaging, for example, right? So into that kind of into pulling that information, and Dean, I think you did a good job at kind of describing how, like, the process there. Katrina, I'm interested in hearing from you specific to the way that, for example, this micro content, right? Whether it's a clip of a YouTube video or something like that, if we were to create, first of all, is it worth creating ads, creating advertising around it, and pushing that stuff out via with paid ads and excuse me, or boost posts or whatever, things like that, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, what have you. And then, and then hearing more about, how you would say, like, for the people that are listening, how they might want to, what they might want to consider, rather, to help to get people from just kind of consuming the content to actually engaging, using that ad, so that we can actually, so that we can scale this kind of a thing like that.
So I just got out my credit card 2 hours ago to buy something that fell so perfectly in what we're talking about. And I'll tell you what it is. So we do a lot of marketing, and we're always talking about copywriting and how to make copywriting more compelling. And one thing that showed up in my social media feed was these really fun copywriting templates, and they're not like the old school templates, but they're from comedy writers. And so it's kind of like Cards Against Humanity, but for your business. And I don't know if you guys have ever played Cards Against Humanity. I think it's one of the world's greatest inventions. So it's that. So it's Cards Against Humanity for your business. And instantly I'm like, I have to have this, because I think our team will have so much fun. And I think it'll just make, some of our posts just really fun and engaging, so that we get in front of the people we want to. So it was, I think their original price was $24.95 or something, but for the first 50 people who bought it, it was $9.95. So I click it, I'm like, yep, $9.95, I'm going to do it. And then so very similar to Dean, like $10, you know what I mean? And then I'm scrolling through, I'm ready to check out. And then it was like, okay, well, you get your Cards Against Humanity version thing. And then you can, instead of just the template, you could also, for $24, add on this training. So if you get bored of the templates, now you have the training. I'm like, perfect. Submit, paid my $35. They send me the email with my content. And then in the email, it's, hey, I hope you love your $10 template. When you get bored with that, do your $25 training. And oh, by the way, if you're still not good at it by then, hire us. And here's our prices. I'm like, dang, they did it. And that whole—
They did it. They hit the nail on the head.
Because then I'm like, maybe I'm not good at, I haven't even done it yet. Maybe I'm not good at it. So they went from a $10 thing, $25 thing. And then the next lowest on the, hey, let's do it for you if you're not good, it was $1,000 a month up to, I think, $2,500 a month. So they made a very large jump from something I have known about for 4 hours right now. And I didn't even know I needed it until they let me know how much I needed it.
That is an awesome example. That is perfect.
Perfect.
free
Perfect.
content or paid content got you into the funnel. They hooked you. They knew exactly the messaging to move you through. And that's an awesome example. Now you're on their list.
Mhm.
You're an engaged reader. They can tell you anything they want, and you're gonna read it, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right.
Perfect.
They have me, and I was really, I mean, right, like I have my eyes on who does a good job with this, and I knew as I'm going through, I'm like,
Yeah.
they're doing so good.
Yeah.
They really have it. And now, yeah, so I'm excited to go through all of that and see if I'm good at this or not. But
That's awesome.
but I liked that they did it so quickly, and it really showed like their insight and just their finger being on the pulse to get me at all of those steps, rather than to say, okay, well, she just wants the $10 thing, maybe next month she'll want the other thing, and 6 months later maybe she wants the $1,000 thing, because I wanted it all right now in the 20 minutes I went through.
Well,
Right.
and they created urgency by saying the first 10 or whatever it was, they're going to get it a discount. So
Yeah.
they're going to create urgency right away. So you're like, I'm not going to wait till tomorrow. I'm going to do
When they did that, I'm like, that's not true.
Right.
I even knew, like,
Because everybody is one of the first 50, right?
like,
But I think
Oh.
the other thing is they
Right.
obviously understood you and your buyer persona and your needs and the problems that you need to solve, right? As an agency owner, you want to write compelling copy. So they've obviously optimized that ad perfectly to get in front of the right eyeballs, and then they've got a well-defined process. So that's an awesome example, because it's
Yeah.
like, you can't sell to a sales guy. Yeah, you can.
that's
Yeah,
exactly
right.
what it was. And then because they were, I was so in it from the marketing perspective and from this looks really fun.
Yeah.
I was just analyzing it at every turn, and they did great.
And having gotten to know a couple of the members of your team, I would have to agree that a Cards Against Humanity for Business would be something that they would really particularly enjoy.
It's funny, like one of them was, so you like fill in the blanks, but you know how clients always want to email on like Christmas Day, or
Right.
we had one that emailed 10 minutes before midnight this New Year's Eve. And we're like, wow, okay. But anyway, one of the cards said something like, why is your favorite day, whatever, it was fill in the blank, but why is your favorite day to email me December 25th? It's like, that's funny.
Right.
Anyway,
Oh,
so
that's awesome. So I think that really is, it's a perfect example of that, of exactly what we're talking about. And so, Dean, we kind of jumping back over to you as far as just kind of launching off of that, because obviously that's not a micro membership, right? I mean, $1,000 a month, there's nothing micro about that, but the like the tripwires and the micro contents and whatnot kind of got you there. But if we wanted to, like, for those of us who maybe don't feel gutsy enough to make the the $35 to $1,000 a month jump, and maybe just want a different entry point, I'm curious, like, what, because I mean, we have people on on the call today, and people who are going to be watching the replay and whatnot, who are absolutely going to be talking or going to be thinking about how can I do something like this for my business, and kind of walk through exactly what Katrina walked us through. How can I get people to do that for my business too? And so if they were looking for some sort of a micro membership, like, how would you go about developing that in, just, I mean, any case scenario? And obviously we, some of the people that are on the call today. So, just, using like kind of a general case study, how would we create something like that?
Yeah. I think of it in a couple of different ways. So the first is, if you have an asset you could sell for a low dollar cost, in essence, they're paying you to opt into your list. Think about that. We spend time and money and effort putting out free content for somebody to say, I want that free download, and I'll exchange my email or phone number. But if you offer something at a low cost of high value, they're paying you to market to them.
Like a $9 Cards Against Humanity thing?
Yeah. So let's say Katrina, that's where she stopped. She spent $10. So she paid them to get on their list. She's now on their list, and they can nurture that relationship, and they can make those incremental offers over time. And it didn't cost them anything. I'm sure that the $10 that she paid for that first offering was more than they spent on the ad. Hopefully it was. There was a good conversion there. At
Well,
least
and what I can say is they don't even have to print or ship anything. It's a PDF, it's a template.
Mhm.
It's like, I mean,
zero
they
cost.
made this thing, I don't know how many pages it is, somewhere between 25 and 50, but their designer made it. It's a PDF. And now for every person who wants it costs them nothing other
Right.
than maybe the ad traffic to get them there.
Yeah. So I think that's the first thing to think about is how can you get paid to build your audience? And that's one way to do it.
Yeah.
And all of the people on the list, all the people that are here today and that will watch in the future, in some way, they're a subject matter expert, right? They know stuff that their target audience wants to know. And so how can you package something up where you can offer it for a low cost? It's amazing, right? You offer something for free and you offer something for a low cost. The perception of value goes up exponentially. It's a $50 value, buy it now for 10. That's a human nature. We fall into that trap. Where if I just say it's a $50 value, come get it anytime, no rush, it's free when you're ready, the conversion on that offer goes down exponentially. So you can do it from revenue generation standpoint, but more importantly, you can do it from a list building standpoint too. Mm-hmm. So let's back this thing up and say we're offering some kind of consulting service, right? Just to give some context. And our ultimate goal is to sell a $25,000 consulting engagement. Well, obviously, we need to know our niche. We need to know our target audience. We need to know what the problem is that we're trying to solve. And that's probably a service where you're doing it for them or with them, right? It's a high touch service. But how can you deconstruct that service to the point where they feel like they can start doing it themselves? They can start solving their own problem. That's a way to start to build that free offer or that low cost offer, is to show them how, right? You show them how as the first step. Then the next level of cost would be to do it with them. That's the next offer perhaps. And then the third is to do it for them, which is the most high lift, the most value driving, and it costs the most. So if you think about those steps in a typical sort of solving the problem process, break your larger service down into those incremental steps and move the prospect through the journey. A lot of times what I experience, and it's kind of what we talked about just now, is you go from do it yourself, like the template, to I really need help. I'm going to make that leap. And as long as you've got the right target audience engaged, that leap isn't as big as you might think. It's usually between our ears, right? Mm-hmm. How do we convert that, even if it's $150 initial purchase to the $15,000? It's our limiting beliefs and our beliefs of what we think a prospect will spend money on, and very often it's not the barrier you think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that that's interesting because at each one of these points, right? The $10 thing, the $25 thing, the $1,000 a month thing, or even the $10 a month thing, whatever, right? There's going to be people who are just not going to move to the next step, right? And so, Katrina, one of the things that I was always particularly impressed about with your agency is that you create these ad funnels, right? That are similar to what we would create for an email marketing funnel for Mission Suite, right? Where it's, get this thing and then get that thing. And then, everybody who gets that thing that didn't buy this thing goes into a funnel and whatever. So, with retarget, so you guys use retargeting and things like that to kind of navigate that. So how should we be looking at retargeting and those ad funnels along the way to get more people through what Dean and what you kind of in your example just kind of walked us through?
Yeah. So for the listeners that don't know what retargeting is, the best way to describe it is if you have ever looked for a car online, and then, you know, started going on social, doing your searches anywhere else, you start to see that car everywhere you go, right? Like it's on the sidebar in Facebook, it's on the search thing in Google, and you're like, oh my gosh, I was just like peeking around. I'm not ready to buy a car yet, but it's going to follow you, and it's probably going to follow you for 6 months. That's retargeting. So, and what happens there is, you know, like I was saying earlier, all of these platforms have gotten so much more sophisticated with their machine learning. So, what the system is doing is saying, hey, she's in the market to buy this car, let's keep showing her this car and maybe she'll buy it. This happens with, I've had a dress for a wedding that followed me around for quite a while, and I'm like, fine, I'll buy it and be done. So this happens like all the time. Why it's good is, one, the old saying in marketing, or the old number, I guess, the ballpark was, you have to be in front of a person 7 times before they're going to make the buying decision. As these platforms started showing us so much more media every single day, that number has increased, and we don't know what it is anymore. Point being, we do know if we keep showing you that piece of content, eventually you're going to click, or you're going to ask for those ads to be hidden. Part of why this is good for marketers is, I don't want to be spending money trying to get people to buy my thing if they don't want to buy my thing, right? So if I'm selling cars, but they live on a bus line and they only take the bus, why am I paying money to get my car in front of that person? So this is kind of how like the whole funnel works, is if people are interested in some initial content, some awareness content, you're like, okay, well, that person's kind of interested in awareness. Let's see if they're interested in our consideration. Are they or are they not? If they're not, they're out of the funnel, and we're not going to try and get them to conversion, because we're going to pay a lot of money working to try and get someone who isn't interested to buy the thing. And so, but if they interact on the consideration, you're like, oh, maybe they do have a problem that we can solve. And then if they like, click, share, you know, do anything, then we can then put them in the conversion phase of the funnel, which is, hey, they've interacted at the awareness phase, they've interacted at the consideration. We think they're interested. Let's try and get them with the, hey, buy my product or service content.
Mm-hmm. So do you see that being useful at each stage of that process? Like, hey, they interacted, we have consideration content for the $10 thing. We have consideration content for the $25 thing, and consideration content for the $1,000 thing. I mean, do you see that being helpful, or is it mostly just get them into that $10 thing and let the rest go from there?
For this, I would probably just try to get them into the $10 thing and let it go, only because we can overcomplicate these funnels, right? We can have the 3 steps in the $10 thing, the 3 steps in the 25, the 3 steps in the 1,000. And then especially for business owners who are just maybe trying this on their own or don't have a marketing team, it's like, well, wait a second, I don't know what is really converting here. I would simplify it to the 1 for something like that.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm going to add a complexity to this, right? It's just, as we said, let's not overcomplicate it.
So marketers overcomplicating things? What are we talking about?
So in terms of intent, right? So people are at different stages of their intent to buy, right? Kicking tires, doing research, really in the consideration phase. So there's this bucket of data out there that we can access called intent data, buyer intent data. And for the audience, really what that means is Google can tell you who's searching for your stuff, right? So let's say you have sales automation software, marketing and sales automation software. I happen to know a guy, right? And I'm Googling about that. I'm Googling that stuff. And of course, I'm landing on like big brands like Salesforce, but regardless, doesn't matter where I land, I'm searching for that stuff. And Google says, oh, there are 5 people at the same domain, same company, all searching for this stuff. There's high intent there, right? Mm-hmm. And you can buy access to that data. And as a marketer and a sales guy, I can now target that company, knowing that there's a higher likelihood they're in the consideration phase of their buying process. Mm-hmm. That doesn't impact anything else necessarily that we're doing, but we want to target our stuff to people that we know want to buy it and want to buy it sooner than later. And so accessing buyer intent data can actually get you further into the funnel sooner. Obviously, you have to have a plan to be able to leverage that data, do your outreach, if it's an account-based marketing strategy or whatever it is. But Google's got that stuff, right? That's why Google's not going away. And so if you're interested, if you've got especially a higher dollar, enterprise product or solution, that's a really powerful way to get into the funnel quickly with these potential buyers, knowing they have a high likelihood of buying something from someone fairly soon.
Yeah. And I think that's smart, that influencer piece. Like sometimes when we talk about influencer marketing, we're like, okay, so I'm selling lipstick and now I need one of the Kardashians to wear it. Yes, that's influencer marketing. Businesses don't really do that. So what businesses do on the influencer side is, back to your example, Dean, I'm selling a CRM software and you have 5 people at the company. Well, maybe me, the admin, was tasked with, hey, find the top 10 that people in our industry use. And maybe me, the marketer, was tasked with, hey, find one that really integrates with whatever our sales team uses. And there's these different levels and different lenses. Like maybe the HR person also wants to use it for recruitment, something with that arm. So maybe they're looking at it from different angles. But the influencer strategy is, okay, well, now I have to get the HR person. I need to show her like my thing handles what that person needs. My product or service handles, exactly what the admin needs, and so on. Because a lot of times the decision is made by many different people within the organization. So making sure that you have your messaging aligned to those various influencers is important to that decision.
Absolutely. So we're coming up on, it's 5 to 3 right now. And I could keep this conversation going for a very, very long time, but we all have jobs to get back to, I'm sure. So we did have one question come up in response to my earlier question about where does micro content live? Because you had mentioned, Dean, you had mentioned YouTube results showing. Kate asked if there's a preference, or if there should be a preference, maybe about whether to use YouTube versus Vimeo, and if anybody has any perspectives on that.
YouTube is the big monster, right? They're the second largest search engine on the web behind Google. They're owned by Google. And so if you just want to hedge your bets, you go YouTube, right? Vimeo is good, and I think there's value there, but people are not searching on Vimeo even close to the volume that they are on YouTube. So I would hedge that way. I don't know if you agree, Christina, on that.
That to be honest, I don't use Vimeo much. It's more of, hey, here's my Vimeo link, come check it out. And then sometimes I'll click, but I'm not searching on Vimeo. And the other thing I would say about hosting it is, YouTube is great because of that search capability. But the other thing to keep in mind is it's that ownership piece, right? So if everything is only on YouTube, you don't have ownership of that. And so I would definitely make sure you have, whether it's a website or a section on your blog dedicated to it. I guess it kind of just depends what it is, but I would put it on a site that you own.
Yeah, you've got hosting, and then you've got the distribution, kind of is what you're speaking to as well, right? How are people coming on my website first and then ending up on YouTube? Are they seeing snippets to one of the social platforms? So the hosting is only just one piece of it, and the other is depending on the nature of the content, right? If it's a podcast, is it snippets of text every day? I think the content often dictates where the information sits, but to Christine's point, you've got to own it. You've got to make sure you control it, and you distribute it across multiple channels when you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, so last thoughts here, Katrina. As far from your perspective, I'm going to put you on the spot. If you can leave our guests here today with one thing to take away from today's conversation, what would that one thing be?
I feel very on the spot.
It doesn't be every month.
Wrap an hour into that. Okay, so what I would say is focus on success and results, right? So in the marketing space, there's a cajillion things that you can do. And I think it's easy to get really burnout and to feel stalled in what you're doing, because you're often trying to like do everything. I have to post on LinkedIn and YouTube and Facebook and the blog and email and whatever. I would just say pick a thing or a couple of things and put some success metrics to it. So what would success look like? Is that 50 people coming to my website? Is that 10 people buying the $10 thing? Is that people opting in for the $10,000 thing? Like just have some metrics so you can look in upcoming weeks and months to see like, hey, you know what? This one piece that's actually really growing, and I would like to invest more in that piece, rather than having your efforts just so fragmented you don't know where to go and grow.
Excellent. Thank you. Dean, same question to you.
Yeah. I love the fact that you said just pick one or two things and go do them, right? Have a clear plan, because we over engineer everything.
Yeah.
For me, I think it's really concentrating on audience acquisition in a way that's really engaging. That if it's email for you, an email list where you get high open rates, you get responses, you get audience sort of participation. You're not just building this vanity metric. So I think audience acquisition with engagement, that means that you can then move them through some journey that you've predetermined, is going to be important, right? I don't think you grow a business, very rarely do you grow a business with one deal, right? It's frequency and volume based on your business model. So you need audience to be able to talk to.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. There were some questions that came in here at the end. We will get those answered and send them out with an email after the video, and I'll also make sure that they're in the comments on the YouTube channel that we post this to tomorrow as well. So, but with that, excuse me, I was trying to hold on to that, but with that, yeah, I know it was showing right. But with that, I'm going to say thank you very much, Katrina Padron, Dean Isaacs. Thank you so much for being here. This is always a great time. I love this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. And to everybody who joined us, thank you all. We'll talk to y'all soon. Cheers.
Bye-bye.